People say there is a first time for everything. A first kiss, your first car, the unrequited first love. However, what does this mean in the grand scope of things? Are firsts more monumental because they are the first, or do we get better with practice? Do we remember our firsts as more important than they actually were, holding on to that magical moment as a mark of our past and future selves? Do our firsts outshine what comes next? On A First Time for Everything, we will explore with our guests their firsts and how those impacted the seconds, thirds, and even countless times after. Is the first the best or merely the beginning? Or worse, was the first the last because it was so bad? We will dig into the recesses of our memories and consider whether or not a first was the start of something amazing or something we'd rather not remember. Come along with me, Juliet Rose, as I put our guests in the hot seat to analyze their firsts and how they defined who they became. I promise you're in for a fun, although maybe bumpy ride. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of First Time for Everything. This is one of our last, I think, 2 shows of the year, so we appreciate you tuning in. Just a reminder to everybody to send us a star to let us know how we're doing here at Go Indie Now. Every time you contribute, you get entered into our season-ending gift card package. One lucky winner will receive $25 Amazon gift card, a $25 Bandcamp gift card to get the best in indie music, or a $25 drive-through RPG gift card to get the best in indie gaming, a Go Indie Now t-shirt or mug, and a selection of ebooks from some of our guests and hosts at Go Indie Now. So please give us that thumbs up, give us the likes. It really does help. And tonight we are talking with J.M. Shaw. J.M., welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We love that she came in. She kind of came in last minute, so we super appreciate that as well. So we get to have a show tonight. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you write and where people can find you?
Yeah, I have a website. That's the best place to find me. I have my links to my social media, links to my books. I got descriptions of my books and any events that are happening, although I don't have anything happening now because the year's wrapping up, but it's www.jmshawauthor.com.
Very good. Very good. And you're in Canada, right?
I am. I'm in Southern Alberta.
Very nice. I love when we get to talk to people kind of all over the world. So that's super awesome. Well, we haven't actually circled up at any point. So this will be an interesting conversation. Sometimes I know the guests a little bit, but I actually have never met you. So it's nice to meet you. And so why don't you tell us a little bit of how you, I guess this is your first book that's shown on the screen. So talk a little bit about how you came up with the idea for your first book and how you then proceeded to make it happen.
Well, I've actually been writing for over 35 years. I was too shy to share. At the time I started writing, I just needed an outlet. I couldn't find anything that really sparked joy to read, so to speak. And at that time, my mom bought me a typewriter, which, I'm that old. So, but I started writing because I needed that outlet, turned into a hobby, became a passion and obsession. I'd never shared anything. And in 2019, I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and I thought maybe writing is my special interest. So I got brave and I sent my first book, which was The Ascension. I just finished writing that manuscript to an editor, keeping in mind the worst they can say is it sucks. And if they do, I know, and I'll just write for myself. But they came back and they said, this doesn't suck. You should publish. So 2 years later, I did. So The Ascension came out in 2021, and it was my first foray into publishing. The idea for this, my original rough draft was nothing like the book now. It was more of a monster hunting type thing, but it kind of morphed into something else. The idea for the character was sort of a young Merlin in our day and age, because I grew up hearing about the Merlin tales.
Yep. That's really neat. So one thing I always like to kind of delve into is what you were interested in reading as a child, because for me, I can see a lot of those elements now play into my writing now. So what were you interested in when you were a child?
I got bored really easily. So anything that had a lot of action, anything with a lot of thought, a lot of heart. I remember reading a lot of books that the characters were all just carbon copies of each other, and I absolutely hated that. Or you'd have this big epic adventure that happens in the span of 2 hours, and it just didn't seem realistic. And so those were things I didn't want. And as a middle grade student at the time, there was a lot of that. That was a lot of what was out at the time and stuff. I mean, now they've got lots of different books and stuff, so a lot more options. But I realized I actually had a reader pointed out to me that my arc in my series, because I got 4 books out, I'm working on my 5th, it kind of mirrors my life, my struggles with autism, my struggles for trying to find my place to belong, trying to figure out who I am, and figure out how to deal with my autism. I had that. That was really interesting.
Yeah. The thing is, sometimes I find that, the things that like maybe we struggle with growing up that we don't really recognize or we struggle with end up being like our strong kind of abilities when it comes to writing, especially like I was a super overly sensitive child. Like I really was. Everything made me cry. I just felt bad for everything. But now as a writer, that really works in my storyline. So do you find now that you have autism and that you've recognized that, do you find that helps you in your writing?
Absolutely. I mean, I spent my whole life watching the world, watching people, trying to figure out how life works. So I became an expert people watcher unintentionally. And I find that does help me, especially with dialogue, emotional connections to my characters. I spent ages trying to figure out, why do people feel the way they do? And, I thought I was an alien dropped off on this planet, and, I had to figure out how to fit in. So yeah, it definitely played a part. I think I figured out how to write people.
Yeah, I think I relate to the alien thing a lot too, until I was an adult. And then like one day I was like, oh, there are people like me out there. But most of my life I was actually like, okay, I don't belong here. So tell me a little bit about your story, Ascension, like what genre it falls into and any kind of general premise.
Yeah, so my Ascension and the rest of my books in my series, it's a magic fantasy, action adventure, some supernatural suspense kind of all sprinkled in for good measure, because I get bored really easily. So I like that crossover that fantasy allows you that freedom. The arc of my series, we start out within the Ascension. It's kind of introducing that there's our world, our time, coexisting magical realm, but there's a veil that separates us. And we can't see across this veil because we don't have magic, but these creatures that do can and have, and they've been the source of inspiration for our fairy tales, mythologies, monster stories, what have you. And then Callum Walker is a young man born with the ability to use magic. He doesn't know why. He's trying to make the most of it. He's able to cross that veil, becomes embroiled in this magical realm. He's learning about this world and all the beings therein. And adventures ensue, and we follow him through the series as he's trying to figure out who he is, where he belongs, because he's too magic for here, but too human for there, and then master these abilities to survive.
That's really cool. Now, is this more, I guess, geared towards adult or like YA or both?
Yeah, so it's like a young adult, new adult crossover. Sure. Yeah. So I tell people, I was like, there's a couple swear words here and there. There's lots of action, lots of adventure, some hints of romance. There's no spice, or very, very mild spice. So.
Yeah. And I love that, that new adult kind of has come up, because I think a lot of people, and myself included, like, really struggled with, well, it's kind of a little too adult for YA, but I still want to like kind of cross into YA because I want to have, teens be able to read this as well. Yeah. And I love that new adult kind of filled in that gap. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So, and you said you have 4 now and you're writing the 5th.
Yes.
Is that the end of your series, or is this something? No. Yeah. You got more to go?
6th. I know where the series is going to end. I'm estimating about 6 to 9 books to reach the end of it. But at the same time, I'm also working on a dystopian Robin Hood meets Romeo and Juliet with hints of Hunger Games. So I got a lot of stories rattling around in my head. If I didn't write, I wouldn't sleep.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. So that's actually a good question for me. That's like, when you write, do you tend to focus on one story only at a time, or do you somewhat work on some, like where you have them on different levels? Like for me, I might have something kind of brewing, but I'm working on one, and I have something brewing, but I'm not writing it yet. I know some people write multiple things at a time. What do you do?
I mean, I can write multiple things at a time. I don't like to, because I like to devote myself, but sometimes if I do have 2 projects, it depends on what mood I'm in. If I'm in a like happy, spirity mood and stuff, I can't write a depressing scene in this one book, but maybe I'm at that point in this other book, so I can write that. And I have no problems jumping back and forth and keeping things straight. I guess it's a gift and a curse. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a gift for sure. Because I think for a lot of people, it gets muddled when they do that. But if you're able to do that, Yeah, that's, because exactly. Sometimes you feel something at one time, and today you
Yes.
do, tomorrow you don't, so it's good to have a few things to work on. And then are you like, do you plot things out? Are you more of a pantser? Like, how do you work on a book when you're dedicated to doing that?
Well, I started out not really plotting. I kind of knew where to start, where to end, and something in the middle, some event in the middle that needed to shift it towards the ending. But as I'm writing more and more, I'm getting deeper into the series. There's a lot of things that I need to keep straight. So I'm kind of laying out a brief outline for each chapter. I'm like, okay, this chapter, it's going to be this person's point of view, and we're talking about this. Everything else is going to be filler. Things happen sometimes, though. Your characters don't always cooperate. And there's oftentimes I'll just be like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Like, I just want to see where this goes. And then it'll take you off on a tangent, and it'll either be really, really good or you're questioning your sanity. So you can reel them back in and they go in a different direction all the time. So that's always the fun part.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, I go into a chapter and I think, okay, it's going to be about this, but sometimes it decides it's going to be about something completely different. And it might take the whole story off. And that's why I'm not too much of a plotter. It might just take the whole story a different direction that I didn't expect. So I'm like, oh, we're doing this now.
Or sometimes you have this planned out for this chapter, but it's just too much because something else is happening that's more important. And you're like, okay, well, I can take this part here that I thought I would talk about in this chapter, and I'll put it into another chapter.
Yeah. Do you ever have a chapter that you start writing and then you realize for a while, you're like, wait, this is like now gone on forever. I need to actually split this.
Yeah, I have a bad habit of that. So
me too.
It helps me to kind of be like, this is a 4,500 word chapter. Can you cut it in half, or at the very least put some, breaks in there or something? And I didn't realize it was so long, but it flowed really well.
Yeah, I do the same. And I'll be like, wait, now I'm on like page 20 of this chapter. So that's too much. Interesting. So I know that, you said that, you knew you were autistic, but that in 2019, that was kind of when you realized maybe that would be where writing kind of fit in for you.
Yeah.
And do you weave that into your stories as well? Like, do you use kind of like your platform within your fiction writing to kind of share your experiences?
Not really my experiences with autism, but certainly things that I've learned about life. Just little tidbits like, wholesome messages I weave in there, but an adventure happening in the background. So it's not hitting people over the head with a 2x4, I guess just little tidbits that I picked up along the way. And I do have a lot of people say that the emotion that I put in to my characters, they really feel like they connect with them. So that I must be doing something right there.
Yeah, for sure. And would you say, like, when you start out a story, everybody kind of has their strengths and weaknesses. Some people are great world builders, some people are more plot driven, some people are character driven. What really kind of motivates you to get started?
Oh, sort of how I feel. Like I have to be in a certain mindset. A lot of times I'll have this idea and it'll percolate for a while in the back of my brain, and I'm not sure how to begin. And then the inspiration will come to me and I'd be like, whether it's in the middle of the night or my kids are eating dinner and I have to go and jot it down on a little notebook. Okay, I'm starting here. This is the middle. This is the end. And then I fill in the rest later.
Yeah. Do you usually start with characters or like the plot itself?
Mine's I like a lot more of the character driven, like seeing them develop, seeing them learn, seeing through their eyes and stuff, because that's, I think, how life is.
Yeah.
I love world building though too, but so they see the world, but they're more interacting with the world rather than just seeing it.
Yeah. So let's talk world building, because that's an area that I am not as strong in. Like, I'm very character driven. So mine's like character, plot, then world. That's kind of like the priority. So I really do struggle. And like, I teach classes, and when it came to the world building class, I actually had a coworker teach it because he's better at it. So when you world build, like, are you literally building from scratch, and do you like kind of create maps and things like that? Or how do you really kind of immerse yourself in that world so you can share it with the reader?
I have a picture in my head. And as I'm writing, I see it as a movie playing out, and I'm moving through the movie. And a lot of times I'm just writing down what I see. Sometimes it's inspiration. Sometimes I will find a picture on the internet that I'll use as an inspiration to kind of spark some creative juices and stuff. But really I'm seeing it in my brain and interacting with it as if, I don't know if you ever watched Star Trek where they had the holodecks, right? And that's how I feel. I may not physically be there, obviously, but I feel like it's a real place. Like I'm seeing it as a real place. I'm not, so that's kind of where I go. As far as the magic world building aspect in my series, I've always thought of magic and medieval times kind of synonymous because they don't need technology. So I tend to Google weird things like what kind of dishes did they have? Some weird things like that, just because I've never been in the medieval times. And so that's a bit challenging as far as that goes.
So your world, so in Callum Walker and the Ascension, so when you build this world, is it like kind of an Earth-based world, or are you actually going outside of that altogether?
No, they're on Earth. It's just that they coexist with us and we just don't see them. We don't know that they're there. We cannot cross the veil without magic. If we try, we just get disoriented and basically end up wandering, and we can never cross it. It's sort of it's kind of like a virus is a living thing. The veil is sort of similar to that.
Oh, neat. And what was your motivation for that?
Just things that there's so many things that are unexplained in our world, and it would make sense if they didn't exist in our reality, if they existed maybe beside us or in an alternate reality. Not saying that my magical realm is an alternate reality, but they've got to exist somewhere. All these things that people say, what would it be like if they did exist? And we just couldn't see them.
Yeah, almost like those planes of existence. Yeah, I love that. Exactly. I love that. So when you first put out this book, so you put it out, did you already know you were going to have a series, or was it like an individual book at that time?
Yeah, I'd already written the first 3.
Okay.
That was my first book. I wrote it, the rough draft, in about 2.5 months. And then I mean, the rough draft, editing takes like 3 times that at least.
Right.
But my second book, because I was on a roll and I didn't want to stop, I wrote that one in 2.5 weeks. And then my third book was like 3 months and stuff. So by the time I went to publish my first one, I'd already written the first 3 and I had a good start on the 4th.
Wow. That's really cool. So knowing that, like, you put out that first book, how quickly did you put those out?
About a year apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you put out the first book and you started to get feedback from readers, first of all, was the feedback good? Was it what you were hoping? Were there any things that you kind of said, oh, I should have done that differently?
Yeah, no, there was a few things, I mean, I have dyslexia, so there was a few typos here and there. So sure. I corrected those as I went. I did change my cover a couple times. I'm learning as I go. So this is all new to me and it's a huge learning curve. The biggest challenge for me was the marketing. I don't know what that word means. I'm a mom. So the first thing I did was I changed it and I said, I'm going to call it Showing the World I Exist, because it gets me in the right mindset. It makes more sense. Yeah. But I mean, as far as feedback, you get the odd 2-star or whatever review or something, but most of the feedback has been very positive.
And did you change anything in the subsequent books, or did you let them roll how they were?
Well, I mean, they obviously edited them.
Well, yeah. I mean,
well, there was a character that initially in the rough draft of my first book that didn't make it into the second, but then I was convinced, my editor at the time convinced me to keep this character. So then I had to write them into the other books. Also, I'm just learning things as I go. By the time I, came back to editing my first book, I was kind of feeling more confident and I could go back and review and edit many, many, many times.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because a lot of times, like most of us, like if you have a book, you write that book and you put it out, and then you might write a follow-up book. But because you had that, I guess my curiosity is, were you impacted by readers' reviews to change anything, or did you just feel like you were committed to the story as it was?
I felt like it evolved the way it was going to evolve. There wasn't, I didn't change much from those rough drafts. Once I had the first one edited, I didn't really change much of that story. Cleaning it up a little bit and learning as I go for the writing, but the story itself stayed the same.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, it's good to commit, to yourself. So one of the things I'm curious about, I'm an introvert. So I really struggled when I was first kind of having to go out into the world and promote myself. Did you find, having been diagnosed with autism and kind of dealing with it, did you find that to hinder your ability to market yourself? Or did you find that you just found ways that worked for you?
I mean, growing up for many, many years, having autism, I mean, girls tend to hide it because we mask. And I found ways to mask my fear because peopling is absolutely terrifying. And I kind of developed my own script when I was younger so I could learn to talk to people. And then I kind of implemented that when I was going out talking to people as well. Every now and then they'd ask me a question where like, I did not prepare for that one.
Off script, yeah. Like, wait, that's not in my script.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went through that too. I had to actually do scripts. That's how I actually learned to deal with the public. And now, like once you do it enough, then you start to get more comfortable. And I go off script all the time. But at first it was just awkward. Then I was like, okay, I have to come up with scripts. So then I developed scripts. And then now I'm able to just kind of talk to people because I'm familiar enough with it. So yeah.
Like I know, I'd have the script like to telling you about the arc and stuff. A lot of people ask, what's the series arc? So I tell people a lot of times like what the arc is about. The what if question that started this whole series was, what if fairy tales were more than stories? Monsters were real. We just didn't know it. Or monsters were flesh and blood. We didn't know it. And, different variations of that. And then every now and then I get somebody asks, like, there's a character in my first book and they said, is she left-handed? And I'm like, I don't know. So it just threw you for a loop. So you have to stop and like, maybe they are.
That's a random question.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was a good question because I was like, wow, they're actually thinking. So
did they say why they asked that?
No, they didn't. But they did also ask if my city that starts out is based off of Winnipeg in Manitoba. And I'm like, maybe. I've never been to Winnipeg. So could be. You never know. It was just supposed to be some random city that built their place and I gave it a name. So they're all pretty much laid out the same.
That's interesting. I mean, like questions people ask, I'd be like, oh, I didn't think about that.
I thought it was like, wow, that's a thinker. Yeah. I was curious to know how they come up with that, but yeah, the left-handed one, they never told me why they came up with that. But the Winnipeg one, I was like, oh, okay. I kind of looked at the map and I was like, yeah, it's kind of could be, I suppose.
Yeah, but you've never been there.
I've never been there. No. I flew over it once.
Yeah, not enough to
No, couldn't really see it. There was clouds in the way.
That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't had any questions like that. So that one's like, oh yeah, left-handed. Okay. I was like, maybe it was a fighting style or something. I was trying to think of why that somebody would ask that. But
yeah, no, I don't know. Like I couldn't figure it out from what was in the story because this character was they didn't fight. So yeah, it's just kind of, okay. I never really described them as left-handed, or maybe it was the way they were, their personality, and they're more like right brain versus left brain. I don't know. Okay. So I didn't know what the question was.
What I love too is that readers are thinking enough to think that kind of question. Like they're like thinking enough about the story and the character to go, I wonder if they're left-handed.
For future note, my main character is right-handed.
Interesting. So, you're in Canada, so like, do you do a lot of in-person events or do you sell mostly online?
I do a lot of book signing events. We have a chain of stores called Indigo and Chapters, which is kind of the Barnes and Noble of Canada. Okay. And I started out with my book in one store on consignment, and now my books are in 10 Indigo Chapter stores across Alberta, as well as a few smaller stores and a couple libraries.
So when you do in-person events, again, we weren't just about the scripts, but what have you really kind of, I guess, gleaned from being able to do in-person events? What has worked for you and what hasn't worked for you?
So my very first book signing, they gave me a plain white coffee mug to put my pens in, which is fine. I mean, it works. I started to think, and I was thinking, I was like, well, this is very boring. So I got this cool mug that has like dragons on the side, and then I got a gargoyle pen, and then I got a tablecloth, and then I got banners behind me. So I started to kind of, think, well, I want to bring out elements for my story that speak to me, to speak to my series. And I love nature. My family is like Scottish Irish. So I bring out those elements and stuff. So I think that is a big part that draws people to the table. Also, I do notice that a lot of the staff, they're very nice. All the staff I've met are very nice. And they say that a lot of authors come and they do this. And they're not interacting. Whereas I'm at my table and everybody who makes eye contact is like, hey, how's it going? And a lot of them be like, I'm not interested. That's okay. I'm just saying, hey, you know, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying hi, you know. I also will ask a lot of people, it's like, hey, you know, what kind of things do you like to read? I mean, I'm assuming you read if you're in a bookstore, kind of.
Right. That helps right off the bat.
Yeah. Just I want to be me. I want to be genuine. And sometimes it's, you know, I mean, I do put on a mask because I'm terrified of being me as well. But I really just trying to find ways to tell people about my books, and I don't want to pressure people to buy something that they're not going to read.
Yeah. And I think that's smart because I think, you know, a lot of people, and I've done a lot of events, and so I'll see across the board different types of, I guess, like marketing towards the people walking past. And sometimes people will be very aggressive. And maybe the person will buy that book, but you can tell they really don't want to. And I always say to myself, I wouldn't want somebody to buy my book if they didn't want to read it, because even if they did read it, which is slim if you're forcing them to do it, they already have a bad taste in their mouth about me. Exactly. I don't want that. So the book sale is not worth alienating somebody.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I always think in my head, it's like, you can have the best book written. I'm not saying mine is, but if nobody knows it exists, nobody's ever going to read it.
Right.
And, you know, but I also love sharing my passion too. So that's always fun. You know, I start out terrified, but then I start talking to people, and then I get out of my, you know, into my groove, and I start sharing.
Yeah. So what do you like to read now?
Right now I'm reading Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight series. I'm into the third book. And if you know anything about them, they're like that.
I'm a librarian, so I have to shelve those books all the time. Yes, for some big books. Yeah.
I didn't read for a long time there because I wrote the stories that I wanted to read, and going to these book signing events and talking to other readers and stuff, they're giving me a lot of recommendations, and I'm checking them out. And I ended up having to buy 3 bookcases. I've got everything in there from, you know, like the Scythe series. Obviously, Stephen King is on mine. I've got some Margaret Atwoods in there. Dean Koontz was an author I grew up really loving his books. What else is on there? Joe I'm butchering his name. I just finished his book called The Devils, and that one was interesting. I liked that one. It's a nice concept.
So you tend to read within the genre or outside the genre you write in?
Yeah. So but I always say that, but the only thing I don't read or write is I don't read or write a lot of mystery. I certainly don't write a lot of mystery, but I don't read a lot of mystery just because either I cannot figure out who done it, and I'm like, what? Wait, or I figure it out and it's just boring. Yeah. I don't read history or nonfiction because I mean, unless I want to sleep. And I don't mind books if they've got a lot of adventure. They have a little bit of spice, but spicy romance is just not my genre of choice.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think we all have our things. Like, I read a lot of nonfiction, even though I write fiction. So, like, that's my go-to, more so than anything. Because you're like, oh, you must love to write, read fiction. I said, actually, I read mostly nonfiction.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, talking about this series, and do you have other, I guess, work that you're doing that's outside of this series? Like, do you have other ideas that are kind of like standalones or a different series or anything like that?
Oh, I told you about my dystopian one. Mm-hmm. I'm also toying with the idea of branching into sort of back to the future, War of the Worlds body snatcher kind of combo, which will be kind of a future sci-fi horror. But I've written in almost every genre except mystery, history, and spicy romance.
And are you published in that as well? Like, can people?
I am not. Yes.
You're not. Okay. Because I know you said like you wrote a lot initially.
I know. I've written hundreds. I've been writing for 35 years. I have hard drives full of books that I'm not allowed to delete. And now that I've become published, I'm curious to kind of go back there and just kind of visit some of my older ideas and cringe like mad when I see my writing.
Yeah. Yeah. But, it's good to go back because I think that well, one, you can always refine something that you
Yes.
love. Oh, I still love the story idea. I can refine this. But two, you can also see your growth, which I think is always important as a writer. Go, wow, I have grown. That's
I know that a lot of people hate that about editing because they send their document off and they get it back and it's all like scratched off and like red ink everywhere or whatever. I actually find it a learning experience. And I don't know how they do it, but a good editor can take like one word and like either take it out or move it to another sentence. It completely changes the sentence. And I'm just like, how did you do that? Like, I'm sitting here going, I don't know how to use a comma, you do that right. I mean, it's amazing. And I'm like, teach me your magic, please. So
yeah. Yeah, I do editing as freelance, and it's a total different skill. Like when I'm editing, I'm not the writer, I'm the editor, and when I'm writing, I'm not the editor, I'm the writer. Like, because it's two different parts of my brain that I tap into. So yeah.
If I do editing for too long, it's hard for me to shift out of the editing brain and into the creative brain. So I'm struggling to do that with my 5th book. I'm like, no, I have to rewrite that sentence. No, I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to continue on.
Yes, yes. That first draft, you just write it. Just write it. Don't worry about editing. Give myself like, nope, just writing.
Nobody's going to see it until you press send.
When I'm in my editing mode, I could be in the grocery store and I'll be like editing like packages. Like, they misspelled that. They didn't.
Yeah, now because I've gone through 4 books editing, and I read a book and I'm like, oh, there's a spelling error there, or there's a grammatical, it's like hanging preposition, no comma, whatever, they got going on there and stuff. And I'm like, my editor would say that's bad news.
So do you edit your own stuff now?
Oh gosh, no.
Oh yeah. So you still you do your own like kind of proofreading, but you have an editor still.
I do my proofreading. I'm trying to learn as much as I can from my editor because I'd love to learn how to be a better writer. I just recently, I think it's been within the last year and a bit that I discovered I have dyslexia. So that has been an interesting journey because spell checker is not your friend. I had in one situation in this book there, I had my character go out to assess the situation, but I missed one of the S's at the end. And my editor flagged it with the question marks like multiple donkeys. And I mean, yeah, that would be confusing. Technically, it was correct. It was spelled correctly. I can't see it because there was so many S's in it. And I just missed it. And I miss a little, a lot of those little article words or content words and stuff. So I do need somebody to look over it for me. More than a proofreader too. So
yeah. And I think that even like I'm an editor, I still want somebody else to look at my work.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, because I wrote it, so I'm just gonna like that. You don't see it, like you just kind of glaze over it.
Exactly. I actually have to get my computer to read it back to me because I won't see that I've missed words or that my vowel teams, I will a lot of times reverse them. And, I've had strategies that I've developed through the years to kind of cope with things. But I still am, there's technology out there that I have to use. Like the reading back is a big one. So it won't miss those words.
So when you say you have the computer read it back, what program do you use for that?
Oh, just Word. It's like a very computery voice.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I mean, Vellum, I think, also has a program that'll read it back to you as well. I'm starting to use a program called Scrivener because I can separate it into chapters.
Yeah.
I haven't found, I think there's probably something that'll read it back to you as well. So
I use Atticus. I don't know if they actually have that. I haven't played around enough to know that. But yeah, that is something I like. I teach classes on writing. One of the things I always recommend is either reading it out loud or that having it read to you, because once you do that, you catch those things that you just
absolutely
missed.
Yeah.
And then Anita said she misses words too.
Yeah, you don't have to have dyslexia to miss words. You type enough words. Like my first book ended up being around 110, 120, somewhere around in that area. And that's a lot of words. You're bound to miss a couple.
That's a lot of words. Is that what your books are standardly lengthwise? Are they around?
They're around that. They're somewhere between like 110, 115-ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah, each book. So you have 5 books or 4 that are out that are each around that?
My fourth book was a little bigger. It was closer to the 125,000 words. But there was a lot of things that were happening in it. There was a lot of action. There was a lot of plot development, setting up for the next book as well.
Okay. Yeah. That's impressive. I mean, that is impressive. When you think about how many words that is for the whole
That's like
series.
almost 500,000 words.
Right. That's 500,000 words. Exactly. That's really cool. So do you kill characters off?
Yeah, not all the time. I have killed off a couple here and there, but only if I absolutely needed to. Sometimes you fall in love with a character and you're writing this, and no matter what you do, you're like, they have to die. I feel bad, but they do have to die. I'm trying to keep them alive, but no, it keeps circling back. They have to die to move the story forward.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Have you ever changed your mind where you had a character that was going to die and you didn't kill him off?
There was a character in my first book that
was the one
initially didn't make it, and my editor convinced me to keep her, and because everybody he loved her as a character, and so I kept her.
So then you had to go and rewrite all of it.
I did, but I hadn't published the other ones yet. So
well, that's good. But you had killed her off in the first one. Was it?
I didn't even give her a good death. It was kind of an afterthought.
Oh no!
He's like, you didn't even give her a good death. And I'm like, I know, sorry.
So how did you? Was that already published, or that was not published?
It was not.
Okay, so you're. Yeah, I definitely made myself cry killing off characters where I was like, I wish I had to, that.
But I had to go. You know, this character had to take a hiatus, so I had to go and write a goodbye chapter to them, and it was very heartfelt. Apparently, my editor texted me back. It's like, oh, great, you made your editor teary-eyed. And I was like, oh, that's how you get teary-eyed. Wait till you get to the 5th book. I'm literally bawling my eyes out as I'm writing it.
Yeah, see, that's good. You're making people cry. So if you had a writer come up to you and they were newly starting and they really wanted to, maybe they're just wanting to write something, what advice would you give them to get started?
Don't quit your day job. You need to fund it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a marathon, not a race. It's going to take years. It's like starting any business. You know, you spend more than you make in the first few years. And then if you're lucky, you start making some, maybe enough to buy coffee. But don't expect to get rich on it. You know, if you're lucky, maybe. Yeah. But you're not going to be doing it for the money. You know, if you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think a lot of people miss that because I ask that question to almost every guest. People are like, oh, well, I tell them to write or tell them to this or, you know, but they kind of, that's when the people forget is that, you know, you have to be able to fund this. And it's like I always say, it's a hobby until it pays your bills. So,
yeah.
So it's not paying your bills. It's still just a really fun hobby. Don't quit your day job. So that's really good advice for sure. Yeah. Was this your first love? Like, was writing your first love, or did you have something else you thought you were going to grow up and do?
Oh, I thought I was going to be a dinosaur hunter when I was a really little kid. No, I was all over the place. I also have been learning piano for the last couple of years, and I always thought that was something that I pursued when I was a little kid, but we just didn't have money for lessons. So I had like 2 months worth of lessons when I was 6, and then I taught myself after that. And then the last couple of years, I've decided to try to take piano lessons, and I've done that for 2 years. So, you know, I'm playing Christmas songs for my kids.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think it's always good to have multiple kind of creative outlets, because sometimes you get tired of your existing creative outlet. Yes. And you just like, I gotta do something else. And that's nice to have something else to kind of focus on. And not everything has to be a career. Sometimes it can just be fun.
Exactly. You know, I mean, if I ever if I ever became a best-selling author, I might buy a horse and learn to take a horseback riding. You know, there's different things that, you know, a person wants to learn and stuff.
Yeah. I was a horse girl when I was a kid. I didn't have one. I wanted one. So like, I just, you know, collected magazines.
I had 4 younger brothers, and I started karate when I was 12, 13, somewhere around there. So I almost made it to my black belt, but then we moved, so I couldn't continue on. And I did try to go back to it, but it didn't work. But I always say I took karate so that I could keep my brothers in line.
Yeah. See, I'm the youngest of 6, 5 older brothers.
Oh, I'm the oldest of 5.
So we're just on the opposite ends of the spectrum. I just had to avoid my brothers because they were busy beating each other up. So I just had my books and went to my room.
I don't know what it is about boys. Yeah. I was hoping that when I became a mom, I would end up with a daughter. You know, I have 2 sons. Okay. At least I knew what I was getting into. And I've never been a girly girl. You know, I've, you know, martial arts. I became a personal trainer so that, you know, because it was cheaper to become a personal trainer than it was to ever hire one. Yeah. I also play airsoft occasionally. And so not typical girly, what they used to call girly stuff,
Yeah.
which I don't think they should call girly or boy stuff. It's just stuff,
It's
right?
just stuff. Yeah. It's all like we've made up all these gender roles. So like do what you want. Yeah. My son, because of course it's funny because I'm the youngest 6. I have 5 older brothers. I then had 3 girls and finally had a boy. So he had 3 older sisters. And he wore the little butterfly wings and one of his nails painted and all that stuff. And yeah, that was just what we did. So yeah. And he's an adult now and it didn't impact him in any negative way. So, he's good. Sorry, got a dry throat there. So moving forward with this, you have your 6th, is it 5th or 6th book coming out?
5th book I'm working on.
Okay. And when's that coming out?
The earliest would be the end of next year, but it's more likely to be the beginning of the following year.
Okay.
So 2027. Yeah, more realistic.
And you said you think this is going to end up being like a 6 to 9 book series?
I'm aiming for that, but I keep coming up with ideas. So at some point I'm going to have to stop.
It's never going to end. Well, it's so funny as a librarian, like I'll be in, putting books away and there's so many writers that aren't even alive anymore. And somehow their series are still being written by other people kind of as them, so
Yes.
like
I can't remember who it was that said it. Maybe it was George Bernard Shaw. That if you want to be remembered after you're dead, either do something worth writing about or write something worth reading. I can't remember exact wording, but I took that.
I like that. Yeah. And if you think about it, how many books or how many authors blow up after they pass away? I was actually just joking with somebody about this earlier. I said, well, eventually it's going to happen even if I'm dead, but it could. Yeah.
Published, it's out there. It's going to stay out there forever.
Yeah, there's
unless he burns it.
Yeah, I would say there is a beauty in that, like the beauty in something outlasting you. And I think writing, I guess any of the creative arts, you really have that potential to have something outlast you. And I think that's why it's really important to put everything you have into what you write, so like to really pour your soul into it so that it's worthy of outlasting you.
I know I've had the conversation with my husband because he's not a big fiction reader. And I know I had the conversation with him. It's like, you know what, if I was a painter or a sculptor, you'd be able to just look at my work and you'd see it and you'd appreciate it. I say, I'm still an artist. It just takes a little longer to appreciate my work.
Yeah.
Plus, it'll just turn off if you don't read it. So
exactly. It's harder, I think, because with music or with art, somebody gets to experience it passively, but with reading, they have to read it. It's a thing they have to be active with. So you have to get them to open the book.
That being said, when you do immerse yourself in a story, it's an adventure. It's an emotional roller coaster. You feel invested in it. You're a lot more connected to a story than you are to just a picture on the wall. It might be a really good picture, but you don't have to venture with it, maybe
it's an appreciation versus like an immersion.
It's like a slow burn type thing.
Yeah. Well, so kind of going to that, do you do your own covers?
No. The covers that I have out now, I found somebody on Fiverr to design them, but I've gone through a couple different covers and people still look at me and say, oh, you don't look like a Callum Walker. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I am going to be redesigning my covers again because I'm adding chapters and relaunching my first book with new material.
Oh, nice.
And this is the first time I've actually officially announced it.
And when are you doing that?
I'm aiming for January, but it depends on like when the cover's done. And, my son was sick a few days ago with the flu, so that can be kind of delaying things too. So, yeah.
Yeah. I actually didn't write for 15 years because I was a single mom raising my kids. And I was like, there's no way I can balance both of these. It's just not going to happen. So it wasn't until they were adults that I came back to it. So yes, you have my sympathies. I know mom comes first. Yeah. So with your covers, you said you've gone through a few different covers.
Yeah.
This is the cover that is on the screen now. Is that the current cover or is that a previous cover?
That's the current cover.
That's current cover.
It's current cover now. There'll be a new cover within the next, like when it comes out for relaunch.
Okay. And do people, because I'm talking about like kind of the visual aspect, are people drawn to those covers? Do you find that they help sell your books, or is that why you're relaunching, is you want to kind of come up with something a little more?
I've learned a lot as I've gone. I've learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the mechanics of writing. Plus, my first book, because it was my first foray and stuff, there were chapters that I felt needed to be in there. There were characters that did not have their spotlight, and I felt that that was important for story building. So there's some tidbits and spoilers that I don't want to, reveal too much and stuff. But yeah, there's some. I think there's 5 new chapters that I'm writing in there, but there's a lot of different material throughout that I've clarified some things too as I've learned as I've gone along. So.
Yeah, you definitely learn a lot. And I think that, that's why you have to be kind of forgiving of yourself, because you're like, I didn't know at that time. But yeah, so that's an interesting concept with the re-release. Are you re-releasing just the first one, or are you re-releasing this series?
I am doing a relaunch with the first one. It'll have new material, but I'm going to do a re-edit of my second and third books, and then a new cover for my fourth book. So they'll all have new covers. Eventually.
Do you already have the covers, or you're still kind of working on that cover?
No, they're in process right now.
Ooh,
now.
Nice.
I have I've kind of selected some concepts, some pictures and stuff that I'm like, ooh, I like that. But I actually, I was referred to this person who does some really good covers, and I appreciated her work. So I was like, yes, I want something that's, it's going to be me. It's going to be me, because I was like, I was really not happy with my covers, and I could try different things, and it just didn't, so she's listening to me, so that's good.
Yeah. And, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but unfortunately,
you kind of can't help it.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I do. I'll be at an event, and I'll go do my little walk around, and I'll see, same thing. I'll see a cover and beeline for it, because I'm like, oh, that looks really good. Exactly. So I think covers really do matter. And I actually judged a contest last year of indie writers, and that was what I really learned, is like, wow, people can really shoot themselves in the foot if their cover isn't good.
Yeah. And I know there's there's a lot of covers out there that look very cartoonish, and they, you're looking at the covers and you're like, is it a cartoonish book? Is it very immature? Yeah, right. You want to have something that looks very professional but mysterious, and because mine are like a dark epic fantasy, I want that vibe, and I'm not feeling it yet. So
yeah, no, it's important, because it is part of the story. I mean, it is the first thing somebody sees. Yeah. Your first chance to grab somebody is to have a cover, and then that cover should tie in to the story, because that like, I've done that where I'm like, oh, I like that cover, and then I pick it up and it has nothing to do with the book, and I'm like,
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm disappointed.
They're very pretty too, and I love those books that have like the binding, like the page edges.
Oh,
there's going around.
There is. I work in the library, so it's the sprayed edges and the designs and all kinds of stuff now. So
I almost want to turn it around and just put it in the shelf that way, just so you can see the edging.
Yeah, it's a lot of competition in that now, and I think unfortunately what we're seeing is because people see that competition, they're leaning towards AI, but just there's great cover artists out there who use them, because you're going to get something better to begin with.
Yeah, I found that you can buy kits and you can do it yourself too. So that's really cool.
Yeah. See, I'm lucky because I am a graphic artist. So I do my covers. And I'm fortunate that way, because I had the skill set to do that. But if I didn't, I mean, honestly, and I have paid for covers too, because I've just seen a cover where I've been like, or an artist, I'm like, I want you to do my cover. Like, whatever you do, that's what I want.
Yes. Yeah. I know. I've learned so much through publishing, and it's just one more thing that I needed to learn. And, I started working with a publicist, it's been just over a year now. So it's been a lot of information that they've been able to give me, so that, I'm like, oh, I was doing that wrong. So I need to improve this. I need to do this. So it's just playing catch up.
Yeah. So let's actually talk a little bit about that, because I think that that's kind of a unique idea, is that you do work with a publicist. Mm-hmm. So how did you end up working with a publicist? And then what would you say really are the benefits to working with a publicist?
So I didn't know what a publicist was. I knew what a publisher was. A publicist is somebody who basically gets your name out there. You get seen, you get heard, your name gets known. Whereas a publisher is somebody who will print and publish your books for you and send them out to the stores and that kind of stuff. Whether you're published traditionally or indie published, you still have to go and tell the world about your books. And you can only go so far by yourself. A publicist will help you to get your name out there and get heard. It's kind of like selling your house by yourself versus selling your house through a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I found my publicist through another author that I met there's an event in Calgary called When Words Collide. And I met another author there who said, hey, she was working with a publicist and gave me his name. And then I met with him, and then I've been working with him now for over a year.
Nice. And would you say, obviously a publicist costs money, so like talking about that, and would you try to talk about like finances, because a lot of writers kind of put themselves in the hole trying to publish their books? So like I always try to say, use the things that make sense, that actually move you forward.
Yes.
Don't
weigh the pros and cons. And try not to go into debt when you're doing this. I mean, I budget like mad, but at the same time, if you try to take the cheap route on everything, you're going to end up having to pay more, because you're going to have to go and find the regular route to do things anyway, which is going to cost you more, which you were trying to avoid. Now you're paying twice, so it's not always better to try the cheaper route. Yeah. But budgeting is a huge thing. And I mean, like, people have no problems paying car payments or buying a coffee every day. Some people, you could put that money aside and pay for stock or, professional photos or banners for your book signings or a publicist.
Yeah. No, and that's valid. I think that you have to look at the things, that do and don't work, and the things that are worth putting your money into. Because again, like you said, a reader's not going to know about your book if they don't know about your book. Like, it has to somehow get in front of them. So when you decided to go with a publicist and you made that choice, what differences did you see using a publicist versus when you were doing it on your own?
I definitely saw my followership grow on my social media. I became a lot more busy too, writing guest posts, appearing on podcasts, meeting people that I had never met before, and learning a lot about the industry, and learning a lot about that there's so many other authors out there, and speaking to other authors like yourself, and just steps and things that I needed to do, getting my books into other stores, get my books in libraries, whereas I had tried for years to reach out to libraries, and you'd apply and then they wouldn't listen to you. And then he also gave me a lot of advice for moving forward on how to approach things and what to do to kind of make myself known. Sure.
Yeah. I love talking about this because, one thing is, you're on social media and you see, just say people you may know. And I realized just from that how many authors there are out there. Like, we're talking about such a saturated market that as an author, it's beyond your writing. You have to find ways to get yourself elevated above the masses, because it is masses now. Like, you have to find ways to push yourself up above. And I love that idea that a publicist can help you with that. I always try to tap into what people use, whether it's themselves or people use PAs, which is like a personal assistant, an author's assistant. But yeah, the publicist is one thing we haven't really talked about before. Everybody knows what they are in general. We've heard about it from movies and TV shows, so like, it's good to hear how that has benefited you. And what you really got out of that experience as well. I mean, I think that's even how you came on this show was through your publicist. So yeah. So that's really cool. So you would say that's definitely an investment you felt was worthwhile.
Yes. And if I had to point another investment that would be a paramount, is a good editor.
Yes. Yes, please.
It's very easy to publish a book. And there's a lot of people that do, and they don't get their books edited. And you can tell. And I mean, like, there's a lot of good editors and there's a lot of not so good editors. And it's sometimes hard to know. So vet your editors, or look through editor guilds, or see some of their work. Yeah. You can ask other authors, hey, who did you get to edit your work? Because your book sounds very slick, very smooth and well written. Who did you edit? Who did you get to edit? And then, yeah. I mean, when I started out, I didn't know that there was different types of editing.
I teach a whole class on that at the library because nobody knows that. They're always like, oh, an editor. I'm like, well, there's different types of editors.
There is.
We go through each one. And
and some are not real editors. I think my first editor, I didn't know the process, so I didn't, follow through. My second editor took a year to edit my first novel, so I had to cancel that contract. My second editor was amazing, but she passed away on me a couple years back. And then my third editor was a journalist who said she was an editor, and she wasn't. I mean, at one point, I think my mom kind of was looking through my stuff, but the editor that I have now, I found through an editors guild, and I've seen some of her work. And now that I've, gotten to this stage, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm looking for now. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's again, solid advice. I think that when you, as an author, you need to find the person that really matches you. Because that's the thing is like, somebody might be a wonderful editor, but they're just not right for you and your voice. So I think that it is kind of like a testing things out, working with people, and then finding that person that just syncs is so important.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, it looks like our time's almost up. So if you can, again, let people know where they can find your books, if you have any events online or in person coming up, that would be great.
Yeah, so my books you can find my books, you can find links to my books. They're available online through Amazon. They're available on Kindle. They're available as a print through Amazon. They're also on Barnes & Noble Nook. And the links can all be found on my website at www.jmshawauthor.com. And when my relaunch happens, you will see my books there with links to those ones. Links to those, because then the ones that are out now will no longer be available.
Awesome. So you're basically are you pulling them and then is there going to be like a time where your books won't be up at all? There
might be a very short period of time, just,
Okay. And you said, and what was the name of because I forgot the name of the bookstores in Canada?
Indigo and Chapters.
Indigo and Chapters. And so you said a lot of those have your books, correct?
They don't all have them. There's about 10 different stores across Alberta that have them. But the links on my website, you can buy them through Amazon as a print, or they're on Kindle. And the first two are on Kobo. The others will be eventually.
Very good. Very good. Nice. Well, this has been a wonderful chat. I really appreciate you jumping on, especially last minute. It's been a delightful talk, and I appreciate everybody who's tuned in tonight. And again, just remember, this is one of our last shows of the year. So get your likes in there so you can get into our season gift package. And just remember, it's always time for Go Indie Now.